Good evening, all. My name is Alan Bowser. I'm president of the Montgomery County Civic Federation. And this evening, we are honored to host a briefing by the Montgomery County Commission on redistricting, one of the most important issues facing the county and the state and the country this year. And without further ado, I'll introduce Dean Ahmad, a member of the Montgomery County Commission on redistricting, who will introduce his colleagues and share a slide PowerPoint with us. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everyone. My two fellow members of the Redistricting Commission are David Stein and Bruce Goldenson. And what I thought I'd do is I will go through the slides, and I will let them interrupt me if at any point they feel that they want to expand or add to that presentation. And then when that is over, you can ask questions of the three of us or make comments, open the conversation, and provide whatever input that at this early stage in the process you would like to pitch to us. What we're here to discuss is the Montgomery County redistricting. We are going to have to redistrict because it is that time in the process that every 10 years the redistricting takes place, but also because the census data is coming out, and therefore in order to make sure the district sizes are all proper, we're going to have to use the new census data in that process. And finally, and most importantly, we are moving from 5 councilmanic districts to 7. And so that's probably the biggest change that has to be made. The next slide. This is explaining why in more detail we do have to have a redistricting at this time. What you're seeing is a picture of the existing 5 districts. We have to increase this to 7 so that we'll have districts that are smaller and hopefully, God willing, will be more representative. And in order to change 5 districts into 7, there's 2 ways you can go about it. You can shrink the size of the existing districts and then create 2 new districts out of the holes that are remaining. That will not be the approach we are taking. Or you can just go de novo and create 7 new districts, in which case you're going to have some guidelines that you're going to have to adhere to, and I'll be getting into those in more detail. That's the approach we're going to take. As I said, another reason why we have to have new districts is because there's new population data. We're waiting for the census data to be given to us. I just found out a few minutes ago, some of you probably on the line and heard, that we expect to have that data by August 16th. That will not give us a whole lot of time to work with that data, but we're already gone through the process of deciding what are the criteria that are going to guide the creation of the new districts, and we'll be getting to that too. The third reason, as I said, is that the council charter requires that we redistrict every 10 years. And the last time it was approved was in 2011. So you can see it's time. Next slide. Next. Map of 7 council districts from which the voters in those districts will have the opportunity to cast ballots for 1 district council member and 4 at-large council members to submit our report. Now, those of you, and I imagine everybody who's on this call is familiar with the current process. It is the same, except that we only have 5 council districts. So everyone now gets to vote for 5 members, 4 at large and 1 local. It'll be the same, but the local district will be smaller and hopefully more representative. The districts must be substantially equal in population, approximately 150,000 residents in each district. Of course, we won't know that exact number until the new, but actually I think it's going to be more than 150,000, probably something closer to 167,000 residents in each district. Obviously, it would have been a lot bigger if we were still dividing the districts in the county into 5 districts. The districts should be compact and contiguous. A district may not be composed of islands of land area. In other words, we don't want to see any salamanders, as sometimes happens in congressional redistricting. We want all the districts to have a reasonable look about them. Ethnic and racial groups must be identified to avoid diminishing their voting rights by either packing those populations in a single district or splitting those populations in a manner that dilutes their impact on elections. So the fact that we have to do the redistricting should not be an occasion where, whether deliberately or by neglect, we deprive anybody of the influence they have through their votes. Next slide. We adopted hopefully these ground rules will allow us to achieve the objectives stated in the previous slide. First off, by law, population must be equal. And my fellow commissioners can correct me if I'm misremembering, but I believe we have a tolerance of plus or minus 5% in the amount of residents in each of the districts.
Yes.
The
Well,
Equal
Dean,
Protection Clause of the
Dean, that's not written in law, but that's convention, yeah.
That's the convention, okay. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment requires that the legislative districts across states be equal in population. Now, obviously, this is not a question of legislative districts across states, and therefore this is not a matter of law, but the principle is a sound principle and should apply here as well. Compactness, having the minimum distance between all parts of a constituency. Obviously, a circle, a square, or a hexagon would be the most compact district, but it's not practical to divide the county into a bunch of circles, squares, or hexagons. But nonetheless, it is a matter of common sense of what will mathematically satisfy that requirement. In other words, making one district consisting of a couple of miles around the border of the county would not meet this requirement. Contiguity, all parts of the district must be connected at some point with the rest of the district. Now, as a mathematical point of contiguity, obviously this would be met if you had a couple of weird shaped districts meeting at a single point. This is, again, not common sense and not what we're talking about. When we're talking about contiguity, we mean something that is goes beyond that bare minimum mathematical requirement. Minority representation, consideration of areas of population with majority of minorities. Because we are stuck at the moment, at least, with dividing up our representation geographically and demographically, and don't allow for a self-selection of the districts that are being represented, we have to be very careful that we're not violating the rights of any minorities. I find this particular requirement a bit problematical, because what it seems to require is that we have to, in order not to allow a majority of the county to become a majority in every district, we have to divide the districts in such a way that we're encouraging some people to live in a mixed district, a minority district, and other people to live in majority district. But as long as we're stuck with this method of mapping, there's no way to avoid that. So instead, you just have to show consideration for the different groups and make sure that you're not depriving anyone of representation. Preservation of political subdivisions. This refers to not crossing city or town boundaries when drawing districts. I don't think this requires much explanation. It would be obviously, unreasonable to divide Gaithersburg in half, put one half in one district and the other half in another. But the next one is actually a similar principle, although maybe not as self-evident. Preservation of communities of interest. Geographical areas such as neighborhoods of a city, municipality, or regions of a county where the residents have common political interests do not necessarily coincide with the boundaries of a political subdivision, such as a city or municipality. The most obvious example of observing this principle, I think, will be easily understood by members of the Civic Federation, and that is our constituent members, our communities of interest, the different associations that make up the membership. It would be just as unreasonable to divide them as it would be to divide a city or a town when you're creating these districts. So I think it's very important that you keep an eye on this process and make sure that we do not accidentally, obviously we've got a ground rule that says we're not to divide these communities in that manner, but we look to you to keep an eye on us and make sure that we do not accidentally divide some community of interest. Next slide.
So I would add before I go to the next slide that those asterisks are important because the first three are in law, are in the county charter. The last three are not, but are our ground rules. And the complexities of the problem are such that, for instance, preservation of political subdivisions and minority representation at times may be butting up against each other. So it is a complicated question, but those three that are asterisk are in the law, and so those must be.
Thank you, David. That's an important point. So the next question now, how can you help? Well, what communities should be located in a single district? I said we don't want to divide communities, but maybe there are communities with affinities such that they want to be in the same district. And even though separating them into two districts wouldn't violate the dividing a single community line, it would be just as objectionable because of the affinities between these communities. So this is very important that you give us the input to say that such and such an association and such an association want to be in the same district if it can be managed without violating any of the other ground rules. Similarly, there's the opposite question. What communities should be in separate districts? It could be there are communities that happen to be geographically neighboring one another, but they really see their interests as being very, very different, perhaps even opposite. We need to know about that, and you're the ones who can tell us. Are there boundaries between districts that you would recommend? Again, we can't guarantee we'll be able to observe them when we've taken everything into consideration, but I think we should know about any of these boundaries that you'd like to see. So by all means, please let us know that yours, and obviously, we have a lot of other plates we have to juggle, but if we can do it, then I think we would want to. Information on the commission. The Redistricting Commission meets on the second Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m. The meetings are live streamed on the council Facebook page, and you do not need a Facebook account in order to view it. So I encourage you to watch. No better way to keep an eye on us than watch in real time. The Redistricting Commission web page for meeting notice, agenda, and minutes can be found, and there is the link. And I can forward that link to, actually, should be possible to put this link in the chat, right? Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'll either put it in the chat later or I'll just send it to Alan to forward. Also, if it's not already in the newsletter, we should put it there. And then the next set of slides are the resources slides. What resources are we using in order to make these kind of decisions? First is the issue of population growth. You see here, it says that the Montgomery County is currently the home of 1 million residents. Of course, that's a rough number, but if you divide that by 7, you're going to get about 150,000 people in each of the districts. This has an estimated population increase of over 75,000 since 2010. Now, obviously, if you had only 5 districts, then there would be 200,000 residents in each of the districts. Okay, next slide. Okay, this slide, I'm not actually sure, and maybe, I don't know if my fellow commissioners can enlighten me on this. I do not believe that this slide represents the country of origin of all the citizens of the county. If it did, it would contradict the next slide that I'm going to show you. However, it does give you some flavor of the large amount of diversity that we do have in the county. Of whatever this subset of the population is, we 39% from Latin America, 16% from Africa, 8% from Europe, and 1% from other countries. And then by country of origin, you can see that El Salvador, India, China are the tops of the list, and then Ethiopia, Guatemala, Peru, Philippines, Vietnam, Korea, Honduras. So this is a county that has a lot of diversity. Next slide. Now this is shows the racial and ethnic diversity and how it's changed since the previous two censuses. Bear in mind that the 2019 figures are not from the current census, so these are just estimates. But nonetheless, as you can see, whereas in the year 2000, non-Hispanic whites were a majority, they are now a plurality, down to 44% from almost 60%. In the meantime, the number of the Hispanic population has grown to almost 20% from 11.5. The Black or African American population has grown from under 15% to almost 18%. The Asian and Pacific Islanders have grown from 11 to 15%. And then the catch-all other races, or whatever that means, has gone from 3 to 4%. Of course, bear in mind that race is an artificial construct, so don't put too much weight on this graph. But nonetheless, I think it does tell us something about the diversity in the county, which is actually quite nice. And the next slide. Okay, now this is how the racial and ethnic groups are laid out according to the census tracts, which are the basic units that we use in dividing up the plotting the lines for the district. You can see that there is a diagonal central area that has no predominant group of, in the population demographics. So going on, from the north, almost north, well, east northeast of the county down through Germantown, Gaithersburg, skirting around Rockville, and down towards White Oak, that there is no predominant group. So it's very, very mixed group of population. Then on either side in the north, you see white predominance. And the central part on either side, you see white majority. And then in the southern part, again, another area of white predominance. And off in the eastern, southeastern corner of the county, a Black majority area. So you can see what the considerations are, not to try to respect those mixes of distributions when we draw the final boundary lines. And then off in the right-hand side, you see the population distribution by census tract and the census tract acreage by race. I think, is that the last slide, or is there one more?
That's
Okay,
it.
that's the last slide. So I will ask, I'll first ask David and then Bruce if they would like to add anything to what's been said here.
No, I don't have. Bruce, do you have anything to add?
A couple of points. At one point, we thought we would be getting the census figures as late as mid-September. The fact that they're now saying we're going to get it mid-August is a blessing, but the deadline of November 15th is extremely awkward. As you are, I'm sure, well aware, there are lots of people who want to run for office. And if they're trying to run for a specific district rather than at large for the council, some of them don't know what district they're going to be in. And the primary is in the spring, 22. We need to have this in place so that these people know where to file, what they're going to be running for. Now, when we turn our report in on November 15th or approximately, that doesn't mean that's the law, that the districts have been established. It has to be confirmed by the county council. They make the final decision to adopt our report or make changes to it or whatever. So sometime after November 15th, well, let's put it this way, by November 15th, people get a good idea of what districts they live in and if they want to run in the district or at large. That could change. The question about dividing lines, you look at that map and everybody sees I-270 running right up and down the county, northwest to southeast. Oh, isn't that a good dividing line? Well, in some places it might be, but it splits right down the middle of the city of Gaithersburg. It splits right down the middle of the city of Rockville, and we're not going to split municipalities. So that's not a good idea. It wasn't used in the past. We're going to have to be very careful about you doing that in the future. Our backup for planning, and I think this was shown in one of the slides, was the numbers from 2019. And the theory was that since that is probably pretty close to what the census is going to come up with, we could start, in effect, playing around with making our maps using that 2019 estimates. We might have to make some small changes, obviously, but at least we could continue the work. And each member of the commission has been given access to the program to sort of lay out their own ideas of how to lay out the districts. This will all come together, and eventually there may be 2 or 3 that we take as ones we're really going to discuss and dissect a little bit and say yes, no, and what have you. But it's an interesting process. It's not an easy one. And if you get a lot of email traffic, be careful when you react to an email that comes in that says redistricting meetings. The state redistricting process is also underway at the moment. And you can get very confused with what you're seeing. Oh, there's a meeting for Montgomery County region and Howard County, I think, coming up very soon by the State Redistricting Commission. That's not us, total separate body. The first time I saw that, I thought, oops, I missed the meeting. Nope, wait a minute, wrong redistricting. But it's a lot of fun. And I don't know if you all realize that when the commission was put together to avoid the political gerrymandering concepts, the commission is made up of a mixed group of people. It's designated with a maximum of 4 Democrats, a maximum of 4 Republicans, and the remaining 3 could be any other recognized party or independents. I believe, as it turned out, there are 4 Democrats, there are 2 Republicans, and I'm not sure, I think there's 1 Libertarian and or independents or non-declared. And that's enough for me spouting off.
And I would just add, those are all really good observations. I would just add, as people are starting to think about the process that we are doing, you have to keep in mind that because we're going from 5 to 7, we're really starting all over again. And when people start talking about, well, what's going to happen to District 4, or what's going to happen to this corner of this district, that's probably not a fruitful way to look at this. It would be in previous redistrictings, because since it was the same number of districts, we would just be tweaking at the edges to reflect the growth and change in population. But since we're going from 5 to 7, I don't think that that's particularly a fruitful discussion to talk about how we would change some small part of an existing district. Because like Dean said, we are really having to start this from a blank slate to come up with 7 districts.
Well, I want to thank all of our commissioners for joining us this evening, and wanted to welcome everybody else who is in our online audience. Let me start with a question for you, Dean. you mentioned a couple of times during your remarks about the opportunity for the public to provide information to the commission. And I'm wondering what the process is for getting information and suggestions and recommendations to the commission. And then if you could speak a bit about what are the other opportunities for public engagement as it goes from the commission to the county council.
Okay, well, we have the ability to call for public hearings. This is not a public hearing, by the way, because the public hearings require that a majority of the commission be present. I'm not aware, maybe David and Bruce can correct me if I missed something, that any such public hearings have been set up yet, but I expect that something like that will be set up. However, I want to encourage you to have contact with us. It doesn't have to be any of the three of us, although I obviously, because of my connection to the Civic Federation, am more than eager to take your comments to the commission. But you can contact any of the commissioners that you feel comfortable contacting and asking them to make sure that whatever you're interested in is attended to.
We did have some discussions about having town halls set up around the county where people could come and deliver testimony, either physically or verbally giving it out or handing something in. And we haven't had a schedule yet. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but the intention was to have several town halls, perhaps in different regions of the county, up county, down county, northeast county, etc.
Also, this meeting is one of a series that we're having. We sent out invitations to all the groups we could think of and that we thought would have an interest in this issue to give you a chance to make comments now. The problem is, of course, that this is an early stage. I'm sure that once we start floating suggested boundary lines, there's going to be a lot more comments than there would be at this point. Nonetheless, if you have a comment, now you can feel free to make it today.
So we would strongly support the idea that Bruce was discussing about community town halls where people have an opportunity to express their views. We strongly believe in community engagement, in-person meetings, transparency, and accountability. So we hope that there'll be those opportunities before you present your final report.
We have
Ellen?
meetings scheduled, reaching out to groups all over the place. I gave one to the Democratic District 18 caucus a week or two ago. We have a task list, shall we say, where we have listed all of the groups that we're going to. And there's probably 15 or 20 on that list already. And any group can contact us and we'll set it up this way virtually and hopefully in another month or two, maybe even personally, and get together at a meeting place. But we will contact either 1, 2, or 3 commissioners will show up at every one of these things.
I want to encourage any of the organizations, constituent organizations of the Civic Federation to let us know if they want to have a meeting and, and spread the word to the ones who are not represented here today.
We'd be happy to do that. So people who want ask questions, please either indicate by raising your hand in the video or with the raise hand function if you can find it. Karen, you go next.
Yeah, as a community, I represent Kensington Heights Civic Association, and we have been split between 2 council districts for the last 10 years. So I wouldn't mind if we got put back together into one, but I'm just sort of curious as to how mechanically this actually works. Do you have like a really detailed map of the county and you can just take a computer pen and start drawing on it and scribbling, using your Sharpie version and see what it does? Or how do you actually do this?
So Karen, we use ArcGIS, which is a global, which is a GIS program, and it has in there demographics for every census block. And so as you assign a census block to a district, it will start to accumulate those demographics within that district. And so you're able, as you continue to add or subtract districts, census blocks from districts, you're able to see the total population and the balance within the district.
Simple, just draw some nice little squiggles and you're all done, right?
Yeah.
We've got 3 people raising their hands. Let me take them the way they're represented on my screen. That would be Alan Myers, Joan Awkward, and then Famata Bare, and then Jean Kavanaugh. So Alan, you go first.
Just a quick question. Does the council do its normal review process by going to committee and then holding a hearing, or do you have any idea how they proceed through this?
The charter says they have 30 days from when we present our map to either accept that map or adopt a different map. I'm not sure about, maybe the other two know anything about their deliberations, how they would approach that. I'm not sure.
Was not involved in it 10 years ago. I have no idea.
Nor I.
Good question, and we'll find out.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, moving on, Joe. You're muted, Joe. Joe, you're
Can you
still
hear me
muted.
now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so just a couple questions. As far as the 7 districts, you said if the population is going to be, say, 1,050,000, that would be roughly 150,000 per district. So it's going to be an equal breakdown. I was encouraged to hear that the goal is to keep towns and municipalities intact, because it's true. I think someone earlier mentioned Kensington is split. Many are. I think Bethesda is. Probably other towns within the county are split also now. So I guess what I'm curious about, because there are so many different criteria, and likely it might get to a point where you'll have to make some tough decisions. You mentioned 3 are by law. Would you say which would ultimately to kind of break these down in the best, representation for the 7? Are there some characterizations that might end up kind of trumping the others? And I know we're early in the process, but one of you commissioners mentioned, I guess there are 3 that are by law.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the 3 are by law, but go ahead.
David, go ahead.
The 3 by law are that they have to be equal population, compact and contiguous.
Oh, got it. That makes sense. Okay.
In terms of the municipalities, be careful. There aren't that many municipalities of any size in Montgomery County. Bethesda is not a municipality. Germantown is not a municipality. Montgomery Village is not a municipality. It's a development zone, but it's not a municipality. So after Gaithersburg and Rockville, and you go down into the lower county, Kensington and Chevy Chase Village and Friendship Heights, there are some small municipalities. There's no way there's anybody going to be, or should be cutting into those in half.
Right.
Laytonsville is a municipality, but it's also a very small municipality. There's no way that's going to get cut in half. But
Right.
people think about, well, North Potomac, or my zip code is Rockville, but that's the postal district, not the city.
Right.
So that creates a impression problem. People have a certain impression about being in a city. Well, I live in Germantown. You can't split Germantown in half. Well, for a variety of reasons, we would try not to. But if it had to happen, we wouldn't be violating the rule about don't cut a municipality.
Great. Thank you. You're right. That's a great clarification. Thank you for
And
addressing that.
I'd also like to emphasize that that's why the question about cutting communities is so important, because the issue of cutting municipalities is really very limited application.
Mhm.
Much more sweeping is the idea that, for example, I live in East Bethesda. I wouldn't like to see any part of the East Bethesda Citizens Association split off from another.
Correct.
I actually misspoke a minute ago. They have 30 days to hold a hearing, and they actually have 90 days to vote on our map. So conceivably that could I hope that they would vote earlier than 90 days, but the law says they have 30 days to hold a hearing, 90 days to take the vote.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Joe, for that question. The next question from Madabari.
Yes, so you said any community or organization can contact you to do something like this. How do we go about doing that? How much far in advance do you need notice to join or to participate in a meeting? That's one. And also the part about not splitting up a community. So is it based on issue areas within that community? And is it a hard and fast rule? So I saw the graphic. So is that a hard and fast rule, or is that guidance of how you do, of what you need to do to have a fair splitting of the map?
Well, it's what we're calling a ground rule, which means, to me, means we're taking it very, very seriously. And we're not going to violate it unless we actually absolutely have no choice. Now, how the communities identify, that's sort of up to them. And that's why it's so important that we hear from you. If you feel that you belong to a community that you do not want to see split up, or a part of a pair of communities that you want to see together, or that you want to see separated for whatever reason, you've got to get that information to us. I'm optimistic that we will be able to do this as a practical matter, but I'm worried that people are not going to speak up until it's too late. I don't want people to come up the day after the county council has approved the map and say, hey, why did you split up our community?
So
say, well, we're aware of it.
So do you want this early, or when you do your hearings? Like, are you looking for information, or like around time?
We're looking for information now. That's why we're having these meetings.
Perfect. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Famada. Jean Kavanaugh, you're next.
Hi, yeah, thank you. For the commission, looking at the maps of the 5 districts now and using the 2019 population data, do you see any shifts in population, or any of the 5 districts growing more than the other, or are they pretty much evenly divided by, with a 200,000 population in each one?
I don't believe that they're that evenly divided. At the time I started playing with the computer program, I noticed that the existing boundaries were not evenly divided, but I'm sorry, I don't remember by how much they were off.
I don't remember the numbers, but I remember one being well over 200,000, like 230,000, 239,000, and another one being 160,000. So that's too much of a spread.
Right. I guess I'm curious about District 5. I'm trying to get a sense of which district grew the most in the last 10 years or 9 years.
Don't recall.
Okay.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody can come back for another round of questions. Carrie Lamari, you're next.
As I said earlier, I was really troubled when they took Leisure World and just followed the fence line and cut it out. And here's why I'm really troubled. I'm president of the Norbeck Citizens Association. I've worked with the seniors in this general area for decades, okay? And primarily, we are the dumping ground for the seniors in this county. We've got, more retirement communities, more, we're senior haven. And that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But when you take a 10,000 group of seniors voting block out of District 4, and you put them in District 3, well, they're actually all alone now. I don't know that they can interact and build that political body with Hampshire Village, let's say, or the senior housings on Homecrest Lane, Belpre Lane. I think that was important. And I also saw it in Aspen Hill. Aspen Hill was also split between District 3 and District 4. And I mean, you could be on one side of the street, you're in District 3, other side of the street, District 4. I don't know. I'm just not comfortable with that. I think you need to keep communities together because they work together. They lobby together. It's their political, persona, so to speak. And when you divide this like this, which you did with Leisure World, I don't know. It makes things difficult for us. But that's
Well,
all
Carrie,
I'm
none
saying.
of the three of us were on the commission 10 years
Well,
ago.
then good,
so we
fix
can't,
it.
Speak to why. No, my point is, I don't know whether that was discussed in their meetings. What I would like to do is I'd like to hear from the people at Leisure World
You should.
as to whether they think that they are harmed
They
by
have
being in
public,
District
they
3
have
so that
many,
we can
many groups.
rectify it.
But the fact of the matter is, seniors have a unique need. Even in transportation, they need bigger signs. We got them stoplights, so pedestrian lights, so they can go to the park. But to do all this, there has to be a political body. Okay, I'll let somebody else talk now.
I'll make one comment here. Leisure World is decidedly unique. The Board of Elections, in setting up voting precincts, their biggest problem of doing the right thing was how to handle Leisure World. One precinct? No, that was a little awkward because there's too many people for one precinct. So how to do that? Well, there's two precincts, but they meet in the same place. It's been a problem. And I think the commissioners on this commission recognize the fact that we need to be very careful with Leisure World. There may be a concentration of elderly people who live in Leisure World.
Well, I just want to say one thing.
I am elderly and I live in Gaithersburg. And I'd like some bigger signs out here too. So,
well, you go. It's easier to see. But no, what I'm trying to say is when the seniors need to lobby,
yeah,
they need to lobby together. So when you divide them out of other senior facilities, it makes it difficult. I mean, when we tried to get this traffic light here at what do you call it, Norbeck Park, it was wonderful. We had seniors protesting, marching down the street, stopping traffic. We had Secretary of State Rahman, or Secretary of Transportation Rahman, actually come out here and walk Norbeck with us to get that change. But you see, it takes that political lobbying, that block.
Well, if you understand how politics can work, there's multiple ways to do this. If you split Leisure World in half or into two different districts, they now have two district council members representing them. And they are a sizable enough group to influence each one of their district representatives. So in effect, you could get two districts already lined up to fight for the senior issues. So, it's one way it works in one community one way and works in another way in another community.
I think that would violate our attempt to avoid splitting up communities. I think Kerry's concern was that he thought that Leisure World's interests would be better served if they were part of District 4, the current District 4, rather than this current District 3. I think what we need to do is we need to have one of these town hall meetings at Leisure World and hear from them directly.
Our next,
It's interesting to see what the council member from District 3 would think about that, but anyway.
let's move on. We have two more questions in the queue. Is it Sharia? And then Jerry Garson. Did I pronounce that right?
Cherry and Ethan, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. Thanks for everybody who's serving on the commission for your time. I live in Clarksburg, and really the question I wanted to ask for a while was because I was looking at the April 28, 2021 presentation that was done by Park and Planning Commission. And the last slide had, I don't know, maybe this is not relevant at all. Had a graphic that showed the 7 districts, and it was kind of shocking to see it because that District 7 extended all the way from parts of Germantown into Clarksburg and Damascus all the way to Burtonsville at Eastern County. So yeah, just kind of piggybacking back on all the discussion, just how did that happen, and how the process seems to have diluted the constituency of a community. And I think to the point whether you split Leisure World into two or not, what we have experienced with the state district mapping is that we have 39, 15, and I believe 17. So we get no influence with anybody because the community has been split into three. So I think to that extent, I would rather have the commission make sure that the communities are banded together so we can lobby better than being split into 2 or 3 or 4.
So that's a guideline. There have been no maps made. So any map that the planning in that slide. So I think the one you're referring to is just talking about the theory of splitting into 7 districts. Nobody has made any maps yet.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question, Jerry Garson and then Karen Cordry.
One of the things that you should bear in mind that in Clarksburg, we've had a significant increase in population. Part of the problem is I don't know what you're going to do. There are a whole series of court cases challenging the census when it's issued on August 16th. And you do run into some major technical difficulties that you have to finish all this stuff before the actual filing dates are ended for people to run in districts. Otherwise, they just can't vote and live in the district. So you're really into some very tight deadlines. I don't know if anyone quite understands how tight the deadlines are.
We do, Jerry.
We do.
I was gonna say, it sounded like they did. Yeah, my only quick question was just as a follow-up on what I asked before is, do you all have all the neighborhoods in hand, or you need us to send to you and say where our boundaries are, that kind of thing?
Yeah, send them.
Okay, so you do want us to send, okay, so,
We know where a lot of them are. We've contacted all the major organizations like this federation, League of Women Voters, the Board of Elections people, their election maps and who contacts that they have. We're reaching out to every place we can think of. And if you think maybe we missed you, by all means, send it in.
yeah. I mean, Kensington Heights is, it's actually defines nicely. It's basically, you know, Georgia Avenue to, whatever that one is on the far side of St. Paul, Flyers Mill to University, but I'll be happy to send it in.
Thank you.
It just occurred to me when you were talking about the countywide town halls, perhaps you can have some kind of hybrid capability, because this using the electronic communication, the Zoom really does let more people participate. And I think you need sort of buy-in for the commission's work. So I would recommend a hybrid to the extent that that is possible. Who else has got a question for our guest this evening?
Hey, Alan, just if I may ask one more, who would be the right person to send an email for a community meeting? If you can share the email or phone number, that'll be very helpful.
I'm sorry, you said
Oh.
it's the right person to send in order to get what?
So yes, who in the commission, framework would receive an email about a briefing to homeowners association, community association, or other organization? Who would we send that to?
Okay, the briefings like this one are being set up by the individual commissioners. We have been reaching out as individuals to any organization that we think, that we know about. So you can contact any one of us. And so if you'd like, I'll be glad to put my email address in the chat if you'd like to contact me directly. And if Bruce and David want to do the same thing, they can do that too.
And we'll post that on the Federation's Facebook page. So those people who go there as a resource will be able to get it there. Lorna Ford has her hand raised.
Yes, hi, good evening. A quick question. Are there any organizations that are restricted from receiving the benefit of this type of information? I'm particularly interested in faith-based institutions. So if I am a member of a church that, okay, I see one person shaking their head, another person nodding.
No, there's no limitation. You can definitely get contacted. I have sent out invitations to members of my, my own faith community, and I am hoping that other people on the commission have been doing the same. And if you know of a faith community that you want to get an invitation, just let one of us know.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Fatmata, do you have another question? Or is that hand up from before? Joe, do you have another question?
Yeah, I need to get my hand down. Sorry.
That's all right, Joe. Do you have another question? You are muted. You're still
muted.
You're still muted, Joe. No, we can't hear you.
You're still muted, Joe.
Are you talking to me? I
Uh,
don't have a question.
Joe Awkward, no, no, not you, Joseph Horgan. Joe Awkward, you are still muted, and yelling is not going to help us. If you can unmute, we'll take your question at any time. Let me ask the commissioners, what's your best guess on how you're going to publicize your recommendations at the end of this process? Is it simply going to be a transmission to the county council, or do you plan to have some kind of special event?
I think we've talked about that yet, have we?
I'm not aware that we've discussed that.
But since you've raised the question and put it to the three of us, we have a meeting scheduled for this Wednesday, which, by the way, is open to the public. You can zoom in on that Facebook page and listen to us. We'll raise the question.
Because I know that it'll be met with a lot of journalistic interest, and there'll be, television and radio and some, what little print we have, some print coverage, but it's still hard to get messages out and throughout this community. So I think you need to make an extra effort to get the word out. So as Dean said, I think we don't want to have thousands of people who are surprised by the results of the commission's work.
I think as someone pointed out, there's going to come a point when there are probably going to be like 3 plans that are the focus of discussion. We're going to try to, compromise among them. I would very strongly like to see at that point those 3 plans made public so that we can get the input of the general public on where they think, where they think that the bargaining or the negotiating should go.
For those of you who've lived in the county a long time, I really wish we had the old Gazette newspapers floating around to publicize stuff like this.
Yeah, we missed that. We missed that desperately. Well, we said we're going to go to 8:30, so we have 5 more minutes for people to ask questions. Let me call on Omar Lasso.
I just want to thank you all for doing this. Presented today, or if there's a link to it somewhere.
I think it's being recorded. Alan, are you going to put it up on the?
With the actual the presentation that you presented at the beginning.
Oh, you mean the PowerPoint presentation?
PowerPoint presentation, yeah.
Yeah, we've said.
Yeah,
we said that we would post the video on YouTube on our Facebook page, and we'll tweet it out. And they said they would send us the PowerPoint presentation. So we will get that out as well.
And I think the commissioners are definitely doing their job, because I just got a text message from one of the other organizations that I represent that they're trying to come out to meet us as well. So I think you all are doing a good job of trying to reach the right people. So thank you.
We are a mixed bag of 11 citizens from all around the county, and we're in the same game that you are. Just We're sitting on this commission right now, but we're just like any of you with our concerns about community and where we go.
Thank you.
How long do you expect how long do you think it'll take from the time you get the census data to putting into some sort of, usable form for your purposes and then for the public's purposes? Is it 2
2 or 3 hours.
What's that?
2 or 3 hours. No, I'm joking.
Right. I mean,
It's a
week, 2 weeks,
It's a
3
pretty
weeks.
long process. It's a pretty hard process with a lot of discussion and back and forth that's necessary. So I wouldn't put a time on it other than November 15th. We have to be done by it. But I would not expect it within a few days. It's a tough process.
Yeah.
A lot of tough decisions have to be made.
And then this work about coming up with alternative plans will be done solely by commissioners. Will there be any staff assistance to try to come up with plans using your criteria?
There are 2 staff people who are assisting us. And when the census figures are published, they get inputted to the computer system quickly. How fast that is, I don't know. It's a download process. But once that's in there, then each of us or any of us, even staff people, going in to use the GIS computer system has all the current numbers there. They're there to work with. And that's a short-term thing in terms of how long it takes.
To your point, Alan, though, those staff members who are assisting us, their assistance is what you call technical assistance. They are not involved in any of the decision-making about, how to implement these ground rules.
We're coming to the end of our time. Are there any more questions? Daniel Crump, see you just joined us. Do you have a question that you want to ask the commission members? We will be posting the video and the presentation to our social media outlets. Joe, do you have another question?
I do. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So just to kind of confirm, so when the data comes back from the census, I think I understand you saying, say if it comes back 1,050,000 for the residents of the county, which would be 150,000, times 7, or 1,120,000, 160,000. So what you're saying is whatever that census number comes back, you're allowed up to maybe 5% one way or the other around that. So in other words, that census data will kind of track how you go with the percentages within about 5% each way. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
It makes sense, and I believe it's correct.
Great. All right. Thanks.
Hey, Alan, this is Daniel. I have a quick question.
Sure. Go right ahead, Daniel. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi. And again, I'm going from one meeting to another. For the commissioners, the census put out something today about the data, the second set of data coming out in August. Is that something that has already been communicated with you guys?
Yes. We talked about
I
that.
saw that today, Daniel. August 16th, they said.
There you go. Thank you.
I'll believe it when it happens.
That's a good
Okay.
point. Thank you.
Last call for questions. Anybody want to raise their hand or indicate that they have a question to ask to our guests? Well, then seeing Ira Unger, please, Ira, you have a question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering about the whole idea of redistricting and avoiding gerrymandering, however you define that. I'm wondering if it might be better in some way, at least theoretically, not to have community input one way or the other, because you're always going to advantage one group or disadvantage another group if you tinker at all. And I'm wondering if there's been any thought about kind of doing it just mathematically, just dividing up the areas without, shaping it one way or the other. Because there are arguments, whether, gerrymandering means blocking one group within one district or spreading it out might be better. Could you respond a little bit to that?
Ira, I'm a strong supporter of developing a mathematical algorithm that will replace boards such as ours. However, you know the computer expression GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. In order to have a decent algorithm, the algorithm will have to reflect the kind of considerations that we're taking into account. What I am hoping, and this is not speaking for the commission now, but for myself, I fully intend to advocate moving to that model, but I want our experience to inform that move.
Okay, okay. Anybody else want to respond to the?
My only comment would be, there are an awful lot of people in this county who want to know that they have a say and can influence and lobby and whatever, what goes on. And it strikes me that an algorithm might technically do it, but that's not the way I expect it to happen in Montgomery County.
Okay.
And we strongly believe in a community voice in decisions like this. We welcome the opportunity to provide input into your decision and look forward to the results of your deliberations. If there's no other questions, let's bring this meeting. Derek, do you have a question?
No, thank you. And thank you for hosting this.
Nice to see you, Derek. Thank you for joining us. So there are no further questions. Let's bring this meeting to a close. We will publicize information, distribute it as widely as possible. And we want to thank our three commissioners for joining us. And I want to thank everybody else who joined us at this Civic Federation briefing on the county's redistricting process. So good night, everybody, and stay tuned for our next special program.
Thanks
Good
all.
night.
Thank you.